Global Order. I'm Hindol Sengupta. I'm absolutely delighted that Arun Maira has joined me in conversation today. Mr. Maira, of course, has been for a long time one of India's top minds in looking at what I would call a society business interaction, a long and very hallowed career in consultancy, followed by a great stint in what at that time was called the Planning Commission. And he's continued to write, to comment, has written several books. So Mr. Myra really understands this very interesting interaction or interface between society and business. I actually invited him for this conversation because I saw a LinkedIn post that he had written about demographics and how changing demographics is changing the world. This is as of course many of our audience know, this is a topic that comes up again and again in our conversations with various people. And what Mr. Myra had written is of great interest to me and I think to this platform. And therefore, I invited Mr. Myra to have a conversation with me. Arun Myra, welcome.
Thank you, Hindol. The pleasure to have a very fine mind ask me questions. And maybe it'll be a bit of a pain, but I'll do my best. Thank you.
You're too kind, sir. Let me begin by zooming out and talking about the broader theme of what you wrote on LinkedIn, because demographics has many dimensions. You were talking about one of the key things you spoke about is this whole big picture idea that the way we look at human life, the span of human life itself, in fact, even though we haven't discussed it much in the public square, so to speak, in fact has really changed over the last maybe 30, 40 years. And therefore, the way we look at the construction of the various phases of human life, that itself needs to be reimagined before we get into any other conversation of demographics. Because unless we think about that, we can't really effectively consider any other demographic issues. Perhaps we could begin there, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hindol. Um, I'm glad you picked up sort of lifespan and the stages in the lifespan and what the world is getting used to be very happy about and now getting concerned about is that the fourth stage in life, and I'll tell you what I think the three or four stages are. The fourth stage in life, when you're supposed to have retired, gone into sort of banvas, and you've fulfilled your duties to the world, and now you earned your rest from the world. That phase has become very long, longer than before, and very long actually. Why? Because, well, economic development, improvement in public health systems, and the science of medicine, and also, I would say, perhaps even education systems, which have enabled people to be more mindful of their own health and well being and to be able to earn more and therefore be able to afford the necessities, good food, and so on in life. So, economic progress through science, I'm going to say that, through science, has enabled uh, longevity to increase. And this is everywhere because the approach to using science to improve um, our lives is universal. It is the way. It is universal. And so naturally, it's having a good effect. And that's proof that it's a good way, that everywhere, whether it's in Africa, or it's in Southeast Asia or South Asia or in South America, or of course in the wealthier countries of Europe and the United States too, longevity has been increasing almost, I would say, by leaps and bounds within the last 50, 100 years. And so the consequences, therefore, are that what to do with these people who are, living so long. What shall we do with them? Um, we can't just, kill them and say you've done your bit and get rid of the old animals and just keep the young ones on the farm to produce more animals and produce. Um, so they have to be around. What should we do with them? So now these people are out to, if I can use the word, to pasture. And then, well, like the cows in Indian streets, they're now roaming the streets. And they're seeming a bit of a nuisance and a burden to the whole world. using metaphors, and even if you feel that they've got an angle to them which you want to explore, please do. Okay. So here we are. We got older people who are considered a burden to our spaces, our economy, and to our society also. And so this is where I got engaged quite just like that after I retired from the Planning Commission, after having retired from consulting, after having moved on from Tata's and being a business executive myself. That you can't just retire yourself. Yes, I said no, I need to. I've done 70 years of good stuff in different sectors, and I think I've made my little contributions to wherever I have worked. I should be allowed to retire at 70. The people are supposed to retire at 60, 65. Why not me at 70? And the people who caught me in were trustees of HelpAge International, international organization, this headquarters in London, operating in many countries of the world, whose mission has been for the last 40 years or so to get the world to appreciate the value of older people in their societies. And they're finding it very hard to get societies to consider older persons as assets rather than as burdens. So that is the question that I go into, which then explains why older people are a problem if seen through a economic lens, and especially the late 20th century view in economics about the worth of work, different forms of work. Okay, so let's go to that. People should be doing work which is productive work by some definition of economists, and that productive work should be adding to something economically valuable, hmm, and measurable. Measurable so that we know it's real, and then we can add it all up and say, well, here's the GDP, which is produced by the work of people in different professions, right? They're doing valuable work adding to the GDP. Hmm? So when people are retiring, by definition, they are not being pushed out of the formal earning economy, formal organizations in which they do work, which is paid for and measured, therefore, both the output side as well as the inputs to them, the wages provided to them there. So now they're no longer adding to the economy, so they are not useful any longer to the economy. They may well be useful to societies like they are in traditional societies. Older people are considered valuable in families in two ways. One is even practically valuable, that they're around. You can leave your children with them while you are going out to do something. They will keep an eye on the house and surroundings, even if they're not doing any physical work themselves. They've got the wisdom and experience to do that. Yes. Also, apart from this practical value of older people within the family and the community, there is a greater knowledge value. It has been felt that they've got some insights that they've learned through their experience, the troubles they've had, the solutions they had found, the wisdom to guide us within the family, and we turn to them and say, what do you think? And they generally are not giving specific advice, but they tell us a way of thinking about things and accepting things or moving to change things around ourselves. So there is a wisdom that by being present and being used creates value for the family community and could be even nations. But this value of the wisdom that older people provide and these unpaid for services that they provide are not added to the economy. So in the economy, they are useless people. Now, coming back to, we don't want to just throw them out. Yes, we feel that they have earned the right to go to pasture, and so far they should be given a pension. Now let's jump to that word, and some social security for the rest of their lives. And the question comes, where is the money going to come from to pay these people for living without working and adding to the GDP? And so Governments are finding it very hard to pay pensions. They used to find it hard even previously when people weren't living so long. Now that people are living longer, the number of people in the society as a proportion to the whole that are living longer is larger in orders of magnitude compared to before, double, thrice before. I mean, the percentages overall, they may still be a minority, but they are a much larger minority than they used to be. This much larger minority has to be supported by the rest, which is still a majority, but overall a smaller proportion of the whole. So a smaller proportion is going to have to fund a larger number of people through, taxation on them, hmm? The use of their savings to invest by the government in different forms and public forms, and out of those earnings to pay the older people who cannot work any longer, and incidentally also require more care, more expenses on their medicine, definitely, and other needs, care needs, wherever they are living. So this has become the burden, the economic burden for the world, economic burden I'm pointing out. And so how does one solve this problem? All over the world, countries are trying to um, find innovative ways to look after their older people without um, increasing the taxes on the working people. That's because if you increase taxes on them, then you say there's no incentive. And it sounds unfair that the working people are contributing to the care of uh, non-working people. That sounds bad. I mean, why are we subsidizing people who are not working? So not just the older people, this ideology that people around us who cannot work because they're disabled, yes, are we required to carry them, pay for them, and provide disability, insurances for young people who are disabled? It's a burden, as you know, and it becomes worse when you say there are young people who are able to work and they're not working. Why are we providing to those people, those families, more money for them to be able to have enough money to buy food, stamps, or to look after their children, and childcare and public health insurance for their health and so on? It's coming out of our money. People should be earning money. They should work and earn money. All very well to say, I say, for younger people who've got the ability to work and who you consider to be of the working age and you want them in the working population. But when you come to the point of older people who cannot work, and also you want to take them out of the formal working population so that the opportunities for younger people to get the jobs and not have older people compete with them. So therefore, this lifetime employment idea, which say the Japanese may have had or have, and it was in good traditional societies or traditional organizations like my Tata organization, you get wisdom out of these people and we owe it to them to keep them on, because how else will they earn? They can only earn by being part of our family, and we keep them on. And then these companies were being described, like my Tata Group, as entirely socialist. When are they going to change and stop bothering about just the people? They should worry about their own economics, because after all, a company is set up. A company is set up to produce returns for its shareholders. And by doing this nice social work and being nice to people inside yourselves, you are depriving the shareholders of what they should be getting by you, in your nice, good heart, giving it to the causes that you care about. So same thing with government, which governments are being run like now economic corporations. They have to balance their budgets. And if they can't balance their budgets, they should stop doing social work and being kind to people. The difference, of course, being, Hindol, and this I'll stop after this, that a government is set up by the people, elected by the people, or gets supported by the people, if not elected by them, if it keeps looking after the society and everybody in the society. A government is there to provide for the people of its society within its boundaries. A corporation is not set up to look after the interests of people within its boundaries, but to look after the interests of people who invest within it, who are outside its boundaries. Yes, all investors, they are not under the control of the corporation. It's the other way around. Whereas the government is under the control of the people it's supposed to look after. Hmm? So here we've got an institutional problem, which one began to realize as my helping international people, just talking with them, that look, you're not going to keep solving this problem of finding more support for older people as they go, unless we apply our minds to the design of the institutions that we have, the government and its purpose, and the corporation and its purpose. And we have to rethink these. Underneath all of these, and I'm going to come to that after you ask you to please check anything I've said so far about the nature of work.
A couple of things come to mind from what you've said so far, Mr. Myra, is that there is one thing to say that people who were supposed to, in the classic sense, retire at 60, maybe even 70, if you push it a little bit, they have much longer lifespans after that. And many of them, in fact, because of modern medicine, because of better care of their bodily systems and so on and so forth, better standard of living, are in fact far more capable of working perhaps than before, especially in a country like India. The other thing, of course, is this emergence of something called the care economy, where on one side we are saying, okay, maybe these people can do some productive work, and why don't we find avenues for them to do so? But at the same time, there could also be an economy to take care of them, because many of them may have the ability to pay a certain amount for this care. And we don't have the system in a country which is simultaneously young, but also with a growing aging population in India. We don't have the social system to provide the care. And often these days, children live far away and so on and so forth. So, how do we build that care system? So, in a sense, it seems to me that it's a bit of a balancing act between these two things.
Yeah, you talked about older people. They are living longer and healthier. So, of course, why can't they do some work? And they want to do some work. They don't want to be put out to pasture. The question comes is, what work will they do? And supposing they can do exactly the same work that a person 30, 40 years younger than them can do. Hmm? Okay, and then we've got a larger pool of employable people able to do whatever work the economy requires to be done. So here we are in a situation, certainly in my country, in India, and it is in many other countries, that there aren't enough jobs even for young people. Yes, the economy, the pattern of growth of economies is such that they are not generating enough jobs for people to use their own labor and their own intelligence. Machines are taking over the labor of people, and now artificial intelligence is taking over the intelligence which otherwise people would bring to their work. So, work possibilities for human beings are being reduced for younger people also. And so I say again, if the older people perhaps can be as sharp as the younger people in learning new technology and stuff, yes, so that they can get the sort of jobs that are emerging, they will be competing with the younger people for the limiting and continuously limiting number of jobs per unit of GDP growth. So the employment elasticity of growth, GDP growth, is reducing everywhere in the world. And the country that has had for the last 20 years the lowest employment elasticity is my country, India. And we are the country who can least afford it. We are now the largest in population with the largest population of young people yet able to and looking for work. So our pattern of growth must change. It must be a good employment generation pattern. And the form of work that people do should be work which is available to them to do. So change how you are producing growth and not so much with labor displacing technology, intelligence displacing technology. So coming now to the caregiving economy. Good. Even if a person is not living with the family, the person requires care, as you say. So who is going to come and provide care to this person whose family is not around? Somebody else is going to come and do it. Either it's a nice volunteer and they say, There are other old people in some caring house or living within their homes alone without their children. I will voluntarily, when I have the time, because I'm also at work, go and look after them. That's good. How many such opportunities are there and people able to do it are there? In relation to, as I point out, see, on one side, the younger people have to work longer hours, scrambling to earn enough income. So, where is the time they have to look after other people voluntarily? And the needs for people to be looked after, let's say voluntarily, is increasing. So, they
So
should.
I'm suggesting, sir, there's a suggestion that it's not voluntarily. This is the whole line of work. This is
I get it
work
exactly.
by caregivers.
Exactly. And therefore, we come back to the core question, which is about what is work done for? What is the nature of work? So, the people who are coming in, we don't want them to do it voluntarily. We say there's a whole new profession arising, a whole new industry rising called the caregiving industry. Hmm? And there's a lot of opportunity for startups and others to start ventures to get into this segment of the economy. This Niti Aayog has written a terrific paper after consultation, but the solution, they say, the growth, and this title also, the growth of the silver economy, meaning there's silver, if not gold, to be got out of these older people somehow. So I say out of these older people somehow. So these professionals who are going to come, solo or part of enterprises, to provide this care, they need to be paid. Where's the money going to come to pay them? Now, if they're an enterprise, like I say, a corporate firm, stock market registered to scale up and sort of enterprise, it is going to have to be paid by its customers. Hmm? The customers don't have money, like we just said. So then you say, oh, but the government should provide them the money, like pension or something, and they can buy the services from us. So it comes the solution for these new enterprises is the government must provide income to those people to pay us. And this is, you're a sharp mind. Universal basic income was an idea that came out of Silicon Valley. They funded some economic think tanks, some economists, and said, the solution to this problem of the world today, where there are not enough incomes being generated, hmm, and all these products are being produced by these enterprises, and someone will have to pay for them. And since, like we just said, the people can't earn enough because our whole industry is about displacing people. Yeah, improve productivity of enterprises by displacing people and do it much more efficiently and on scale through technology. Okay, so the government should provide a universal basic income to everybody. And the proposals have got stuck because the government said, but we need to have the money to pay this universal basic income. And if we are being told that we shouldn't print more money and we shouldn't borrow more money and so on, and can't tax you, of course, will reduce your incentives, where are we going to get the money to pay the universal basic income? The solution will have to be that every enterprise that is growing itself must start being mindful of making its contributions to the society and the generations that are with it. Okay. Within the families, I'm saying that social structure, yeah, as well as I'm saying within the corporate economic structures too. So, but then how do you measure and give value to the work that people do? The only measurement that seems valid nowadays, because it's measurable and countable, and certainly only one for the economy, is pay for money. I mean, work for money. Hmm? Yeah. And jumping to women now, and this is the real conundrum. When you talk about caring, and the word labor is used when a woman produces a child, I mean, this has always been so because it's natural that biologies are so designed that one of the two sexes will be doing the laboring while the other just does the seeding, does the laboring to produce even the resources that the male wants more sons in the house and the economy wants more working people. The woman does it, and she does the caring also. Yeah. Stays at home, does the caring, or nowadays not so much at home, but really bothered and takes time off to do the caring. And the productive enterprises say that that's the problem of employing women. You see, they want to take time off to have babies. They want to take time off to take care of their children. And we are going to solve this problem, big companies say, by providing them caregiving facilities or money for caregiving facilities. But they themselves are under pressure to say, come on, you can't do this social sort of work. You got to be just paying for work that is adding to the corporation's product, its output. The other is your social conscience, but you can't give much for it. And the government should be doing it. This problem is growing. I mean, certainly corporations can't look after the social problem, whole societal problem of longevity. So the value of the work women do, and I'm generalizing by saying caregiving work. I'm saying naturally and historically, women have done such work, and now men will probably do such work. How are they going to be paid, and how much will they pay? In India, such caregiving work done by women in the public school systems, public mean village, Anganwadi workers, Asha workers. How much are those women paid? As hard and longer hours than many of the men do. And going outside even before government started supporting these social programs in which women necessarily are employed, hmm, we go to women in rural families. Yeah, they do work other than even looking after their children and cooking for the families. They go out, and if they don't go out to work for someone else for money, at least on their own farms and farmsteads, they are looking after the chicken and the cows and something, producing something economically useful, at least for the family, if not quite often for sale from their homesteads going outside. But who pays for this? Not paid for work. They are not paid for the work, the labor that they do. And some people, families don't even have the land in which the woman can continue to work with the family. So she goes out and works in other people's homes as domestic workers. A woman in India works much longer hours in various professions than men do. So where women are not in the workforce, economists say. I say, which world do you live in? Women are working longer, harder, under worse conditions than men. And we don't value the contribution they are making to keeping our lives, our communities, our lives first, and then our communities alive. We don't value it. We
And
only
even in
value.
formal labor, data seems to suggest that in the last 10, 15 years, the percentage of women, even in the formal workforce, has grown. And I suspect that's perhaps because, in sectors like making mobile phones, I've just picked up one sector, a vast number of, labor, especially in southern India, are women. I believe even in Uttar Pradesh now, these vast factories that are coming up in EVs or even making mobile phones for Samsung and so on and so forth, a vast number of laborers are women. So even that percentage seems to be going up, Mr.
It's
Myra.
a good thing or a bad thing?
I think it's a good thing.
I think it's a bad thing for the larger problem. What's the point?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the point? Yes, we're taking women out of what we're calling community informal work and put
Yes.
to formal factory work.
Okay.
Now, when they're in the formal factory work or formal office work, hmm, these women, they are leaving some family home, their children home, and sometimes older people at home also. So they are now concerned about the care for those people. They are the people who express that concern much more. They feel it, they express it. And so, to retain more women in the formal workforce, companies are doing all this stuff about childcare and all is not for the men's sake, is to assure the women that your children are looked after. And some companies now in abroad in India are saying we'll pay you something more for the care of your older people also. Helpage is very pleased with this, that you're thinking not just of the children demographics. I mean, they have a right to live, and because they're the future of the country and the world, pamper and or look after. Sorry, bad word. Look after the children and ignore the older people because they're no longer economically useful. So the question you asked about the worth of a human life, the worth of a human life is measured by how much the human life is presently contributing to the economy and the potential it has for contributing to the economy in the future. So look after your children because they are the future. Hmm? Don't worry about the older people in terms of economic contributions because in any case they're going to die. Hmm? Be kind to them, put them into homes, let them have a, what would I call it, comfortable farewell. Hmm? But don't invest in them. Don't invest in them. So the training of older people and on what is the return you're going to get on it and for how long? So caregiving, think of it as an economy rather than a caregiving society is, I say, the fallacy. A society is constructed with different structures and different forms of organization in it. An economy, especially the formal economy, is constructed with different structures and different forms of organizations in it. Plucking people, men and women, out of the social sector, out of society, to become useful in the economy is the way economies have grown. We have been pulling men out of duties on farms at home because it's not productive, it's not scalable. Come and work in larger offices, larger factories, larger farms. And now, because there are not enough of those, pull in the women also. By come back again, Hindol, that in India today, as you're looking at the sociological surveys being done, young men in India are really becoming so restive, whether it's terrorism or petty crime or raping women. It's young, frustrated men who are not able to earn. They feel that they have no dignity and no respect in society, aggravated by the fact that a man's wife, we notice this amongst our domestic health, the man's wife who comes to work with us, we pay 25, 30,000 rupees in that range. The man is earning 10, 15,000 rupees, working and slogging in the rain as a guard or running out on this blanket stuff. And he feels, she looks down on me, or society looks down on me, but looks up maybe on her for the income she earns. Right? So there's a resentment amongst young people against women. I think this needs to be explored. The number of crimes against women and rapes against women by these young men. There is, and some research has been done. I've read it recently, and I think there's a truth to it. That young men, hate the idea of women being thought of as, devis suddenly.
When you couple all of this problem, as we come to the last section that I wanted to discuss with you, all of this is also coupled with another sort of international problem. There are countries like in Europe, for instance, in Italy and others, where South Korea, Japan, where the demographics fall is so steep that Japan is a classic example. Significant elderly population needs to be taken care of, relatively healthy, but still needs to be taken care of. Demographics steeply fallen, desperate need for immigration, and yet immigration has become so fraught, so difficult around the world. Getting the right kind, so to speak, of immigration. Look at the example of what's happened in Sweden. Look at the example of what's happened in Germany, in the UK. Denmark is being held up as an example of somebody who got it right. Very, very, very tough conversation about this. This adds a whole new geopolitical complexity to the issue that you and I have been discussing in this conversation. And I wonder, in the last part of this conversation, if you could talk about that.
Yes, this brings us to international relations. Okay. The principles for governing the world hmm, is that the principle is that there are sovereign countries within geographical boundaries. Right? Westphalian principle for establishing peace amongst the warring countries of Europe. Uh, and every country's government is sovereign within its boundaries. And the people within that boundary, uh, must be free to choose the form of government they want and by the ways they feel are fair ways, appropriate ways to find their government. Okay. This is it. Means every country is sovereign in itself. Its people have the right, without interference from others, to debate amongst themselves, fight amongst themselves, and discover for themselves the way they want to be governed. So the government of a country is responsible only to its own people. Okay. Now, when we're talking, therefore, about global issues, where, like we say, climate change, let's talk about it. If we know that everybody's affected by climate change, and perhaps everybody is also contributing in different ways and different amounts to climate change. It's a global problem that affects everybody. So what should the solution be? Now, the solution, if it's being devised by just the scientists who mostly arise out of the richer countries, and those countries also have the financial and knowledge wherewithal to support and implement solutions on scale, hmm, those ideas will then be denying other countries the right to say, the poorer countries the right to say, but this is not the best solution because this solution is in fact going to make our condition worse. Hmm? And then, like India is being charged and says, don't you think of the whole world? Yeah, the carbon tax that the Europeans are suggesting is a very fair economic way of fixing a price. And you'll have to pay the price because, after all, you are going to be contributing to the global problem. And we feel a sense of unfairness in this, that you did it in the past. And so now you're saying we should not do it anymore. So this is where it comes to about inequity, unfairness, and but imposition by powerful people on less powerful nations, a powerful nation and less powerful nations. So this idea that the governance of a system must be contained within its boundary, and the people within that boundary should be free to choose their ways to suit their conditions. Now, if some countries are older, yeah, they would have different needs. They probably need to, I would say, either import younger people and use them. That's how the caregiving economy will provide jobs in their country, but it'll be providing jobs to people coming from other countries. Or, like in Japan, use more technology. But even the Japanese are saying ultimately the sort of care that an older person needs is the touch of a human hand. So you're inventing robots which feel like one. And it doesn't somehow feel right to them. Hmm? That um, we are not really providing real care. It's just physically looking after a person and making sure that they are medically and physically taken care of, but it's not human life anymore. And we come to the other side, a country like India, we have people to export to care of others. It's not the first time. Nurses have gone out of India, women, Kerala, all over the world. Filipino women, nurses, all over the world, as domestic workers in the rich countries, English speaking, therefore, in the USA and, of course, in Southeast Asia, is Filipino women. Yes. So they're providing care in other economies, hmm, and they earn money and send back home. But what is the condition of their families? What is the condition of their families? And these researchers, with Michael Sandel, the great philosopher of international relations and globalization, this is where he made us research that what happens to the family of a migrant person who goes out with a man or woman to earn. In the case of these women, they go to provide care elsewhere, which seems somehow unfair that their families, children are being deprived of care because the woman must go and bring money to the family by providing care to another rich person who's avoiding taking care of her children because she needs to go out and earn double income families in California and so on. So the care system of the world is broken down by insisting that unless a woman or a man earns, they are not worthy. They're not worthy. Okay, we're not valuing caregiving in non-monetary terms at all. And so migration is the issue of the world today. See, globalization, 1990s onwards, was about giving freedom to finance to roam across the world across all borders. It should be free to go where it wants and come out from where it wants, and don't even tax the movements of finance across national boundaries. But when it comes to human beings, control very tightly where they can migrate to. So we have this situation for the last so many years and into Europe, um, now, of course, horribly into the United States too, that migrants trying to go to the parts of the world where there are economic opportunities and good climate still and good environment still to earn. They want to work hard and earn. They're being denied access. You stay where you are because we don't have enough work, enough incomes to be able to provide to our own younger people who become very restive. This is the background, if I could say, of pushing out people coming on boats into Europe, as well as people in the United States, In the case of Europe, many of them were Muslims, and so you said, well, Islam is invading us. In the case of the US, many of the people migrating from South America are Christians anyway, like we like to be in the United States. So you find other reasons for leaving them out. Now they're the terrorists and, I don't know, druggists and so on. But the basic problem I'm saying, coming back to the economic issues here, the construction of the global economy is such that technology can do more work than it ever did before. But whose work is it going to do? It's going to do the work that human beings used to do and are still capable of doing, I would say, like caregiving, better than technology can. So we have to
Finally,
read.
then, Mr. Myra, finally, then, in summation, what would you say are two or three key, if not solutions, certainly ways to think about sorting out this problem?
Yeah, I say there's one key, okay, with linking it to the Westphalian concept that within some boundary, yeah, and the boundaries have been arbitrarily defined of recently. The boundary of India with Pakistan, you say, is that a natural boundary between peoples? No, it isn't. And you chose for certain political reasons, boosted by uh, ideological or religion differences. And I think they were fanned also to enable divide and rule. And then you divide it actually and said, look, we've settled this problem. It is going on right now with Gaza and Palestine and Israel. And so within the Middle East, of course, many boundaries are so been arbitrarily created. And in South Africa and Africa, excuse me, Sudan and so on. This business of defining the boundary within which people are sovereign, you know, the people go spilling across those boundaries. And sometimes within the boundary that you define, like in Spain, there are people who don't believe that we are exactly the same as those people outside the Basque region. And so these disputes will continue about, we and our government and the right to form our government, even between the Scots and the English. This would go on. So this idea that the boundaries can be so sharply defined that for every matter, environmental matter, trade matters, yeah, finance and stability of the currency matters, as well as religious and cultural matters, the same boundary contains everything. Everybody is sort of homogeneous with regard to those matters within that boundary. It's not true. And people of my religion can exist outside my boundary. People who think my way of what an economy should be like or think in my liberal way are in different countries of the world. So the people within my boundaries, my country's boundaries, don't think like me. Therefore, if they don't think like me, Descartes, then they're not me. They're not like me. Yeah. And so we need a discourse, first point, between people who believe that there are others who don't think right or they think wrong. We have to learn to listen to people who are not in our minds like us. Simply just opening our minds to inquire into what the beliefs of another person are, why they believe it, and how come through their history, their culture, their family, they have come to believe these. And just like I have come to believe what I believe so rigidly, it's because of my history, my culture, my education. They have a right to their belief, and I have a right to my belief. We've got to work together. We have different beliefs, but we will live together, respecting that. I can't force my belief on you, because just as I don't want you to force your belief on me. One, linking this now, this I said is universal between countries, people across countries, within the city, within the village. Then we think that people are not like us. But for governance reasons, this tight boundary of within a country alone is not good enough. And so we talk here in India to say with the village should be more self-governing, and we in the West elsewhere say the city should be self-governing. But what's the boundary of the village and what's the boundary of the city? So here we have in Delhi the classic problem that say, okay, we want the city to be empowered. We've got a government also of Delhi, which is, got its own elected thing. But the river, the Jamuna, in which there's pollution and from which Delhi depends on its water, Delhi government can't control it. Yeah, other people have to participate in the control of the rivers which run through Punjab here and going into UP. Similarly, air pollution. So these are things where there have to be cooperation across the boundaries. And in that cooperation across the boundaries, this principle of please listen to other people's perspectives and respect them. Adding to this, Hindol, power. We have to learn to let the powerless have a greater voice. Less powerful countries a greater voice in the design of the governance of the world and the solutions that we consider should be universal. Similarly, within a country, hmm, within a village, within a city, there should be an openness to listen to the voices of the less powerful people because they are the people who have been so far most damaged by our paradigm of development and growth, which is why they don't have the power anymore. So yeah, MP want a different approach, a better one, which is fair and equitable and sustainable. The discourse will have to be listening to people not like ourselves, and to powerful people, I say, please open your minds and listen to the less powerful. And coming to Niti Aayog and Planning Commission, this was the problem with the Planning Commission, which Mr. Modi noted, because the Planning Commission said so. Our planning process has failed to increase the inclusion in growth, though we have got then two, the second fastest growing economy, China being the fastest. And today also, I think we are pleased that the growth rate last quarter is over 7% or something. Yeah, so we got that.
6.2%.
Yeah, but we got that. But like I said, the inclusion in terms of people earning enough with dignity, having enough social security, is that there? No. And comes back to economics. If the people don't have enough income to buy, then the corporations are not investing. So here the finance minister saying, we are opening it up, giving you incentive. UP you mentioned, then why aren't you investing more? They say, well, we are not investing out
No,
of
this is a real problem. I mean, not investing in R&D and private investment, not growing
not in
fast. That is a
R&D,
major,
not
it's
in
turning out to be a
R&D.
major problem.
No, not in R&D. Why are you not investing in production facilities? Okay, large factories employing a lot of people, not just in UP for UP, but why don't you put up another large world scale factory to produce something in India? And they say, well, if I'm going to produce it to sell it to this so called growing market of India, that growing market better have incomes. And so, in the last 30 years, 20 years or less, I would say maybe we start noting in 15 years, that when the rural market grows, there are certain products which are bought small price ticket motorcycles, scooters, they sell much more than their growth is faster than the growth of cars. Okay, but we measure the success and we are modern by how many cars we are selling. See the proportions. An economy has got many things going on in it. It's the balance amongst them at any stage of its history which will determine if it's healthy and sustainable. And at this moment, unless the economies parts of the economy that employ people who are not yet properly skilled, properly again our definition of skills required for formal factory employment or office employment, if they're not employed, either because the factories and offices are not growing fast enough to employ that many people, or they are growing but they are using machinery to improve their productivity, this is not the solution. So giving companies incentives to just put up large factories and measuring, you were with the Bagla, the amount of investment coming into a state, and I say how much economic employment, how much incomes is it providing to the people who presently are coming out of farms and out of agriculture? We want to improve the productivity of agriculture. The definition is fewer people producing more output of agriculture means it's productive agriculture. So economists want agriculture to have fewer people. Where will they go? They're going to go to industry or services, formal industry and services. But those are also, as we said, A, not growing fast enough to absorb all these people. And B, the way they are growing, they don't require so many people.
Conundrum indeed. But thank you very much, Mr. Myra, for going through this demographic conundrum and, of course, the economics related to it. This, of course, will no doubt plague us for a while, plague, of course, India and indeed the world for a while. And no doubt we'll have other conversations with you about this in the months and years to come. Thanks very much indeed for your time today. I really appreciate it. Arun, thanks very much.
Thanks, Hindol.